Hello and welcome my fellow Weebs. We Weeb online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What if Naruto was the Western Emperor Part 1. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The elemental nation's continent is much larger than people realize, as it was once part of a much larger land mass than the maps shown today. If you look at the map, you'll notice that it doesn't show what's beyond Iwa and Suna, beyond the country of earth and wind. For you see, all of the elemental countries are located on the country's eastern side, and what lies beyond those two countries is a massive wall that stretches for miles from the most northern part of the continent to the southern part, completely separating the east from the west. This wall prevents violence from spreading from the west to the east. When it came to power comparisons, the west was superior to the east in every way, whether it was technology, fighting styles, or even power. The contrast was so stark that it was as if he had a huge demonic dragon ruling over his land versus a small frog in his small well. Nobody, not even the cages of shinobi villages or the daimyos ruling over their domain, would dare to cross this barrier. Even the legendary Uchiha Madara dared not cross the wall for fear of drawing attention to even one of the war-hardened factions there. Beyond this massive wall, which was erected during the time of the Sage of the Six Paths by the sage himself, fought warlords, samurais, shinobis, assassins, and even demons to protect their respective territories from rivals. It was the reason the sage built the wall in the first place, knowing that without it, the East would be easily consumed by the powers of the West. Years later, many feudal lords of the East commissioned the Whirlpool clan to use their mastery of the sealing arts to cover the walls with seals to prevent deterioration and strengthen them. Before his death, the Sage of the Six Paths declared that if the West's conflicts were brought to the East, more than half of the East would be wiped out before a proper counterattack could be mounted. Naturally, legends and myths fade with the passage of time. The warnings were ignored because the East believed they were powerful, if not invincible. Nobody, however, dares to cross. How could they? There was no point in going over to a war-torn land to conquer if they didn't believe they could get anything of value. Warnings were ignored over time as the East's arrogance and stupidity grew, until a single incident became the catalyst that completely shook the East's foundations. And that specific incident occurred on a day when Uchiha Sasuke decided to defect from Konoha to join Orochimaru, but was unable to do so due to the efforts of one Uzumaki Naruto, and was returned to Konoha. The two had fought in a brutal battle, with Naruto on a mission to bring Sasuke back to the Leaf and the Uchiha on a mission to slay his pursuer for greater power. Naruto had received 2 Chidori to the chest, but he had endured the lethality of the jutsu, as well as the pure agony that came with the rest of his injuries from the battle to return Sasuke to Konoha. Naruto used 2 tails of chakra to overwhelm Sasuke in the last Chidori versus Rasengan battle. The blonde shinobi hoped that his actions would demonstrate that he was not a monster, that he was not the Kyuubi, and, most importantly, that he was finally worthy of Konoha's recognition. The council, made up of 11 civilians, 11 clan heads, 2 advisors, and the Hokage, would finally recognize him. He was, unfortunately, mistaken. Uzumaki Naruto. Genin Ninja number 12607, Tsunade said in a hushed tone, not trusting her own voice. It is my duty to inform you that a vote has been held, and a majority decision of 17-8 in the council has been made to strip you of your rank and banish you from Konoha, effective immediately. The reason for this is that, despite your mission, you have caused significant harm to the last Uchiha. You have until the next sunset to leave the Leaf Village, and if you do, you will be killed on sight. Another reason Tsunade didn't say anything was that everyone had seen Naruto use the Kyuubi's chakra and was afraid of the fox escaping. Despite the 4th sealing ability, Naruto had been summoned to the council despite still being severely injured from the battle. Naruto was not even allowed to recover from his injuries before being exiled by the council. As Naruto looked around the council, he was taken aback by this statement. The civilians and advisors all had smug expressions on their faces, happy that the demon brat would finally leave and the curse would be lifted. Danzo had 2 votes because he controlled the Shimura and was the current voice for the Uchiha until Sasuke reached the age of majority, and he used them to expel Naruto. Of course, he had his own plans for forcibly recruiting the Jinchuriki into route while he was out of sight of the village. The Kuruma and Inuzaka clans were the last to vote for Naruto's exile because they both believed Naruto was the Kyuubi, one by popular opinion and the other by instinct and smell. The rest of the clan heads scoffed at the voters. Tsunade looked like she was about to cry when she saw Naruto's heartbroken face. But she resisted showing any emotion in front of the heartless bastards who stole Naruto's dreams. Naruto slowly removed his headband and placed it on the floor. He reached for his necklace, only to be stopped by Tsunade. "Keep it, it's yours. And I hope it keeps you safe," Tsunade said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Naruto exited the council chamber and returned home to pack. Before dismissing the council, the 17 voters quickly revoked the Sandame's law about Naruto being the Kyuubi's container, allowing the young generation to learn the truth. The news spread quickly among them, and their reactions ranged from one extreme to the other. While walking back to his house to pack, Naruto noticed the rest of the Kano at 12, excluding himself and Sasuke. Sakura yelled, "That Baka deserves to die for hitting Sasuke-kun." Agreed. "We should track down and kill that demon." Ino agreed with Sakura and yelled, "I should have known he was the fox all along. He should have died because I could smell that scent on him," Kiba muttered. "How disrespectful. Naruto cheated us and was the fox," Lee exclaimed. Naruto was already crying and contemplating suicide when he heard a voice he thought he'd never hear say this. "Shut up, Lee," Neji said coldly. Lee was stunned by this statement and was about to argue when he noticed Tenten staring coldly at him as well. "He is no better off than I am. He has a seal similar to mine, but worse, even with this caged bird seal. I am recognized as a shinobi and a prodigy among the people. Naruto has a seal that keeps the Kyuubi at bay. And yet many people in this village despise him." Despite sinking into despair, he continued to defy his fate as a scapegoat. "He even forced me to admit that fate was a jerk and that I should not follow her. Seals are familiar to me because I use them in my weapons. A scroll with a kunai on it is not the kunai itself, while the Kyuubi is inside, sealed away. Naruto remains Naruto." Tenten was added. "These cretins don't even know the difference between a scroll and a kunai." Naruto couldn't figure out why Hinata was crying. "Troublesome." Shikamaru grumbled. He also believed Naruto was not the Kyuubi, but was unable to form words due to his rage. Chaoji stood behind Shikamaru, finishing his 4th bag of chips. "Thank you," Naruto said quietly as he walked back to his house. Shino was completely overlooked in all of this. The news that Naruto had been exiled spread quickly, and the majority of the citizens rejoiced. Shinobis and Kunoichis were celebrating the fact that the demon that had plagued them for so long had vanished. Only a few citizens and shinobi were saddened by the fact that a shinobi had been expelled for doing his job. People were still celebrating as night fell on the town. Naruto, on the other hand, was packing his meager belongings into his pack and preparing to leave. Kakashi and even Jiraiya, his 2 teachers on whom he relied, never showed up to say anything. Someone knocked on his door just as he was about to cry himself to sleep. He didn't want to get it because he assumed it was one of the people who despised him. But the knocking became persistent. He stood up, opened the door, and yelled, "What are you looking for? Can't you just leave me alone?" When he looked up, he saw Hayashi, the clan head of the Hyuga clan. Hinata was blushing and poking her fingers together, as she, too, had no idea why she was here. "Naruto, may I enter? I swear I won't hurt you," Hayashi stated. He let them both in, stunned, before closing the door. Hayashi quickly closed all the windows and blinds before applying a silencing seal to the walls. This conversation never happened. "Naruto," Hayashi stated solemnly. Naruto gulped, unsure why he was here. "I've come to ask you for a favor," Hayashi said, taking both Naruto and Hinata by surprise. "I require that you take Hinata with you on your exile." Hinata began to cry and tried her hardest to hold back the tears. "My father doesn't even want me any longer," she lamented. Naruto was enraged. How could a father abandon his daughter in this manner? The next statement, on the other hand, caught both of them off guard. "I don't have much time left to stop my daughter from being branded with the caged bird seal. I do not want her to be imprisoned in a cage and forced into a loveless marriage in order to increase the Hyuga's wealth. I tried my hardest, but the elders rejected my decision to brand her and sell her to someone. I'd rather see her fly free with someone she loves and become a missing nin than see that happen," Hayashi stated. He bowed to Naruto and lowered his head to the ground. Please protect my daughter." Naruto was surprised that someone of Hayashi's status would bow to him, while Hinata was surprised and felt loved. All those years of insults within the Hyuga clan, and her father actually loved her, despite his actions. "I promised to Dadabayo, but why should I? I thought you despised me," Naruto stated. Hayashi laughed, frightening both preteens. "I could never dislike you. You are my best friend's son. You've met my family. Please tell me," Naruto interjected, eager to learn more about his family. People told him his entire life that he was unwanted and abandoned. The third Hokage always claimed otherwise but never revealed his ancestry to him, unfortunately. I'm not allowed to due to the risk of treason, Hayashi snarled. This seemed to depress Naruto. I believe this is the end of the story. On a side note, I'm going to become distracted and drop something, never remembering it. It might contain information about your family. But you should read it after you've left the village. As he stood up, Hayashi accidentally dropped a scroll in front of Naruto. Come on, Hinata, we have a lot to get ready. Naruto was stunned on his bed as they left when he suddenly went into a trance and appeared in his mindscape. When he turned around, he saw the Kyuubi staring back at him. What do you want? Naruto inquired coldly. All the Kyuubi could do was sigh. Kid, I guess it's my fault you've been exiled. I've never understood why you wanted to be Hokage of this desolate land. Naruto remained deafeningly silent. He wanted to be Hokage, but he'd never get the chance, even if he hadn't been banished. He realized that the people would never let him become Hokage because of their hatred for being the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. My point is, as an apology, I'll help you train using my power. The Kyuubi explained. Naruto didn't trust him right away, but he said he'd think about it. Naruto wasn't alone that night. As he had expected, Chuchai and Iam closed their shop for the day and brought Naruto ramen to cheer him up. Haruka joined them because they were all upset that Naruto had been exiled for doing his job. In the end, all good things came to an end when the sunrise arrived too soon. Naruto had packed all of his belongings before leaving. He left Konoha quietly because he didn't want to stay there any longer. Hinata had already been snuck out earlier by her father and was waiting for them at the agreed-upon tree. Both took one last look at Konoha after meeting with Hinata before heading west. The plan was to travel to Suna, where they might find refuge. Before they had gone 1 mile, they were stopped by two people they had never expected to see. Neji and Tenten stood by some trees, gear packed and seals ready to go. What are you guys doing here? Naruto inquired. Tenten and Neji-san. Hinata stuttered, terrified that they were there to bring her back. Relax. We're coming with you, Tenten said. I have sworn to protect you, Hinata-sama. I won't be able to protect you if you leave, so I'll accompany you, Neji declared. Naruto and Hinata both began to cry as a result of this. They attempted to persuade them to return, claiming that they would be fine, but were unable to do so. Instead, they decided to stop after moving a little further ahead to give Neji and Tenten more time to consider their decision before going too far out. The four travelers decided to stop for the night at an opening they discovered. Naruto tried once more to persuade Tenten and Neji to return, but both were obstinate. Neji swore to protect Hinata, and Tenten desired to accompany Neji while escaping Konoha's corruption. She wasn't really leaving anyone behind because she was also an orphan. Suddenly, some bushes behind them shook. They met Hanabi and Konohamaru as they took their kunai and entered taijutsu stances. Boss, Oenii-san. Hanabi and Konohamaru both cried out, running up to Naruto and Hinata and hugging them. What are you doing here? You too. You must return. It is not safe. Naruto yelled. Konohamaru exclaimed, I'm not leaving you, boss. I didn't want to be alone. Hinata-ni-san. Hanabi exclaimed as she sobbed. After allowing all of them to cry, Naruto finally asked the question that had been on their minds. How did you come across us? Some ninjas led us to you, saying they were going to help you, Konohamaru explained. They all froze at this point. The Kyuubi yelled out from within Naruto's mindscape kit. Dodge, move, exclaimed Naruto. The ground they were standing on was suddenly filled with shurikens and kunai as they all moved. Hanabi and Konohamaru couldn't stop shaking after seeing how close they had come to death. 10 shinobi appeared with Anbu masks and the root sign on their masks. Naruto Uzumaki, you will accompany us back to Danzo-sama to be trained for his greatness, their leader said monotonously. When the shinobi looked around, he noticed the others. 3 Hyugas, 1 Sarutobi, and an orphan are present. You will all accompany us to Danzo training. Samas, you have no other option. I'm not going back to that hellhole, yelled Naruto, taking a fighting stance. Everyone took up fighting positions until another interruption occurred, exacerbating the situation. Well, if it's not the Kyuubi brat, exclaimed Kasame. Naruto, come with us, Itachi said emotionlessly. Crap, this couldn't get any worse. Naruto thought. HMPH, allow me to take control for a while, and I'll show them what it's like to mess with the Lord of Foxes, Kyuubi exclaimed. Naruto raised his head. He couldn't yet put his trust in the demon to protect his friends. One of the root Anbu suddenly made a hand seal, causing Neji to collapse in pain. The man removed his mask to reveal that he was a main branch Hyuga disguised as a root Anbu. Hahaha, we can not only get rid of Hayashi's weakling heirs, But we can also put the branch family in their place. The shinobi laughed. Neji, exclaimed the young shinobis. Leave me alone. As protect yourselves. Neji yelled as he clutched his brow. I'm not leaving you, exclaimed Tenten. What should I do? Thanks Naruto. Everything was going wrong, and only a deal with the devil or a miracle could save them at this point. The miracle came crashing through some trees. Incoming, yelled a figure before crashing into the middle of them all. The Akatsuki members were amused. The young shinobis were perplexed. And Root was emotionless. Soon after, the dust cloud dissipated, and a young man with slick black hair combed back and a few stray hairs in front of his brow emerged from the crater he had created. His outfit consisted of a yellow tank top, blue wushu pants, and green wristbands. His brown eyes, on the other hand, told them he was a warrior. WOOT, new high jump record, yelled the figure, clearly oblivious to his surroundings. He took a look around before noticing Neji, who was still on the ground, clutching his brow. He was clearly trying to figure out what was wrong with him, while the others were still trying to get Neji up. Naruto and Hinata took positions in front of him. Before anyone could react, he vanished and reappeared in front of Neji. Before anyone could react, the man nearby removed Neji's headband and peered curiously at the caged bird seal. Cool, as a souvenir, said the man as he placed a piece of paper on Neji's brow. Before anyone could figure out what was going on, there was a loud ripping sound followed by a scream of pain. Did he just stick a piece of sticky tape paper on the brat's forehead? Kisame wondered. Bastard, yelled Naruto as he attempted to tackle the man with Hinata, who easily avoided it. Wait, look at his brow. Tenten was taken aback. Everyone looked up to see that the caged bird seal had been replaced by a red mark on Neji's forehead. What? It's impossible, the Hyuga growled. He dashed up to the man and attempted a juke and strike to the man's heart. But, before he could, a foot landed on his face. Nice job running into my foot, the man joked as he stretched his leg out in front of him. Frustrated, the Hyuga swung his foot away and attempted to strike him. But the man was too quick. You're within my divination range. 32 palms and 8 trigrams, the Hyuga yelled. The man grabbed the Hyuga's wrists before the first palm was fired, effectively stopping the attack. I hope you're ready for a beating because here it comes, exclaimed the man as he broke both of Hyuga's wrists. The shinobi couldn't even react as the other man threw him down before unleashing a barrage of fists that even Itachi struggled to see with his sharing. That was boring, the man said before looking around. At this point, the entire root Anbu sprang into action. Hand seals were blazing through them all, hoping to finish this dangerous man off with a long-range jutsu. Many of them exclaimed, fire style, fireball jutsu. Soon, 9 fireballs were hurled at the man, who was still standing there. Wait a minute, exclaimed Hinata. She couldn't bear the thought of losing someone who had saved them. Kit, watch carefully, the Kyuubi said as Naruto was about to use his shadow clones. Huh, muttered Naruto. The Kyuubi went on. This man isn't your typical guy. He could be even more powerful than I am. Before Naruto could comprehend what the Kyuubi had just said, the man shifted his position slightly so that his left side was facing the root shinobis. His left hand was holding his right fist behind his back. As the fireballs approached, he threw his right fist in the air and yelled, shotgun. The man's hand glowed bright blue without the use of any hand seals and began shooting out many tiny blue blasts from the fist. It pierced the fireballs, extinguishing them and striking all of the root ninjas. They were all dead within seconds. Well, that was simple, the man said, rotating his arms. He looked around at the other people, who were still in awe of him. When he realized this, he began bragging. I'm awesome, right? Exclaimed the man, his nose appearing to grow longer. This caused everyone to perspire. Itachi was the first to shake it off before returning his focus to Naruto, though he kept a wary eye on the man. Come along with us. Itachi came to a halt when he noticed something wrong with this image. Naruto no longer wore a headband, which was strange given his desire to become a Hokage in the past. There were 2 unmarked Hyugas, 1 X-marked Hyuga, and 2 other people. None of them appeared to be on a mission, but rather attempting to flee. Before he could think any further, the man appeared between him and the children. Listen, buddy. I'm not sure why you want these brats, but if you do, you have to go through me first, the man said, pounding his fists together. Kisame was gleeful and about to attack when Itachi abruptly raised his hand first, stopping Kisame from attacking. Kisame lowered his sword as he scowled at Itachi. Naruto, please explain. Are you still a shinobi? Itachi inquired. Naruto lowered his head in shame and tears, confirming the truth. Itachi took a step forward and turned to face Kisame. This is where we split, he said. Kisame looked at him, perplexed. I promised to protect Konoha and carry out the wishes of the 4th. Konoha has clearly fallen from grace. But I will not fail the other. Leave if you don't want to fight, because I don't want to have to kill you. Kasama gave Itachi a strange look before sighing and sitting down. I joined Akatsuki for fun, but you're still more enjoyable to be around. I'll accompany you and leave Akatsuki behind. Itachi paused for a moment before acknowledging Kasama's decision and turning to face the man. Thank you for keeping them safe. No problem, the man replied. But what's wrong with Blonde? Naruto told everyone his story after everyone had reacclimated around the campfire. After finishing his life story, the man appeared to be preparing to march to Konoha and destroy them. My foolish little brother. Itachi grumbled. It appears he has fallen further than I imagined. Along with Konoha, in that case. Why don't you come with me? The man suggested. Everyone looked at him, thinking before they asked the big question. Where are you from? Tenten, who had Neji's head on her lap, inquired. From the west, over that massive wall. The man explained. Everyone went completely still. They'd been taught that anyone from the other side of the wall posed a threat. Kasama appeared even more eager to fight him now. How did you end up here? Hinata inquired. I leaped. I was competing in a jumping contest with a friend when I went a little too far, stated the gentleman. I can keep you safe. Although I must admit that you Easterners are extremely frail. Most of us don't bother going over the wall because it repels most of us. But I'm an exception, however. I must warn you that the West is extremely chaotic, almost every day. There is a lot of fighting. They all looked at each other before deciding to accompany him. Naruto, Hinata, Tenten, Neji, Hanabi, and Konohamaru had nowhere else to go at this point. Kasama was more excited to see the West, where he had heard that there are people even more powerful than him. Everyone packed their belongings and left the next morning after sleeping. This is where it all starts. This is where Naruto and his friends travel to the West, where the elemental nations are never seen until much later. This is where Naruto grows up and becomes emperor of the West with his friends. By the way, who are you, Danabeo? Naruto inquired. I never introduced myself, right? In my kingdom, I'm the badass, one of the most powerful people in my country. The title is after 7 years. The Imperial Palace of the West was breathtaking. Its majestic structure, combined with its vibrant culture, could make any nation jealous. The gardens were filled with lovely and rare flowers, all neatly arranged to enhance the view. Inside the structure, there were magnificent red carpets with gold linings. The carpet was made of high-quality wood, and the walls were made of the finest materials. The doors were of high quality, and each doorknob was intricately designed. Paintings by the most skilled artists adorned the walls. What did the paintings depict? The emperor, of course, was the subject. Each painting depicted him fighting and bleeding in battle. Other paintings were more peaceful, some of which featured his family. Most people were aware that this family had arrived from the east with one of their members. When they first saw them, most of them scoffed, but they proved themselves worthy. They rose and formed the Empire of the West after years of fighting and negotiating with various warlords. After centuries of conflict, this land was finally at peace. Warlords who had fought each other for blood and land now swore allegiance to the emperor. The man himself was drooling while sleeping on a king-sized bed. The man's whiskers were the most noticeable feature of his face. Despite his sun-kissed blonde hair, a beautiful woman with long dark blue hair stood beside him, cuddling with the emperor himself. The sun rose soon after. The birds began to sing, and, splash, a water balloon was thrown in their faces when they awoke. It's time to get up. Naruto and Hinata awoke sputtering, naked from their activities the night before. Yusukuramshi, the man who had brought them to the West, stood on the balcony. Yakairu Kusajishi, a 6-year-old pink-haired girl, sat next to him. Kanuhei, King-san and Booby-chan have woken up. You're going to pay for it. Naruto roared as the two pranksters took off running. Hinata snatched him back before he flew out the window. You don't want to go out in public naked. I'm the only one who can see you in all your glory, Hinata stated. Naruto quickly put on some clothes. Blushing, he kissed Hinata passionately before departing to pursue them. Hinata raised her arms before relaxing, allowing her impressive bust to jiggle slightly. Before getting dressed, she looked out the window as Yusuke and Yakairu ran away from Naruto, who was throwing random items at them to make them stop. They were passed by 4 people. He's at it again. To be honest, you'd think he'd act his age for once and not corrupt little children as well. Tenten sighed as she clutched Neji's hand. They married around the same time as Naruto and Hinata, so it was a double wedding. There was so much for them to learn when they first arrived in the West. Fortunately, Yusuke and his friends were present to assist them, although Hiai's sarcastic demeanor usually irritates them. After a year of living with them, Naruto had the vision of uniting the lands and bringing peace to them. Many people laughed at first, But Yusuke thought it was a good idea. They went to other warlords and fought for lands, negotiated with others, and learned new skills. Tenten studied under the tutelage of a ninja clan led by Yuffie Kisaragi. I believe Yakairu was already like that before Yusuke arrived, Neji responded, after fighting so many different masters, especially those from the Ryazanpaku building, where he trained with their grand disciple. He took the gentle fist to new heights, even after all these years. The masters still kicked his buttocks, but he was getting closer, despite their small size. Each of their members was a master of their craft. Hanabi and Konohamaru agreed with Neji and nodded. A year after uniting the West, these two young shinobi fell in love. They had been arguing for a long time, but Konohamaru finally gave up, grabbed her, and kissed her. Hanabi blushed so much that she fainted, proving that she was indeed Hinata's sister. Both of them had learned a great deal by following Naruto and Neji as their guides. "Stop moving," yelled Naruto as he began throwing kunais. As they ran out to the sparring grounds, Yusuke and Yakairu were still laughing. Sounds of swords and other weapons clashing and clanging could be heard here. Yakairu quickly climbed up to Zaraki Kenpachi's shoulder. King-sen not happy about a joke, she exclaimed, laughing. "Yakairu, we talked about it. Don't climb onto me when I'm fighting," Kenpachi grumbled. His opponent was Kasame, who simply shrugged. "We can fight later, eh?" Emperor appears to be awake. Itachi sipped his tea on the side. He simply smiled at Naruto before returning to his tea. "Naruto-sama, it's almost time for the Unification Festival," Itachi said as he sipped his tea. "I'm glad you have to deal with the paperwork." Yusuke chuckled. Naruto had expected Yusuke to become emperor after they had united the entire West and was prepared to serve him. Then Yusuke just dumped it all on him, telling him he wasn't cut out for it and that he needed to spend more time with his wife Keiko. Naruto trembled. Keiko was only a civilian, but she could easily subdue them all with her fist. Even Kasama didn't actively try to irritate her by threatening to make sashimi and shark fin soup. It helped to have a powerful husband who could do that. Furthermore, everyone agreed Naruto possessed more charisma and leadership ability. A ninja appeared out of the shadows. Unlike the Eastern shinobi, who used flashy jutsu, these ninjas had been trained to truly hide in the shadows. Once an independent guild of assassins, the Brotherhood was joined by others and truly perfected the art of silent death. "Two men wish to meet you, my lord. They claim to be intimately familiar with your life in the East." Suddenly, the temperature dropped, except for Kasame. Everyone knew about Naruto's life in the East, as did everyone else's. Nobody cared because they knew he was violent and enjoyed fighting, but he was also loyal. "I see. Request that they meet me in the royal throne room. I'll be there soon," Naruto snarled. The ninja walked into the shadows and merged in, becoming invisible. Naruto entered the throne room to find two people he had never expected to see, especially since they never saw or spoke to him in the first place. Kakashi, Jiraiya, what the hell are you two looking for? Now. There's no need to be so hostile, Kakashi said, especially since we're not with Konoha and haven't been for a long time. Naruto came to a halt at that sentence, perplexed and surprised. "Let us explain what happened after you were exiled," Jiraiya said. Flashback. "Jiraiya-sama, you returned from your lead?" Kakashi asked as he walked back to the village. It was the end of the road for Akatsuki. Nothing new there, Jiraiya responded. Kakashi was on a mission, and Jiraiya was following a lead. They had met and were now walking back to Konoha. "I've been gone for a few days," Kakashi explained. "Hopefully the boys will not fight again. Naruto learning the Rasengan surprised me. Before I left, I had to lecture Sasuke once more about using Chidori on allies. Hopefully our conversation got him to behave. I doubt it. Sasuke desires power. Tsunade Haim, hopefully, was able to control him." Jiraiya pondered. They soon entered the gate and discovered a massive festival in progress. Everyone was drinking and having a good time. "What is the festival for?" Kakashi inquired. He approached a passing jounin and inquired. "You've never met Kakashi. Today is a fantastic day. We finally expelled the demon yesterday." "What?" muttered Kakashi and Jiraiya. The jounin was too drunk to notice the shift in tone. "Yes, the council finally decided to expel that Kyuubi brat from Konoha under the guise of death. But the punishments were too good for that kid. He should have been executed for his actions against Uchiha-sama." "Kakashi, you should be happy. No more pretending to care about that HURKK." The jounin couldn't speak anymore because Kakashi had suddenly lifted him by the throat. His hiatus had already been lifted, revealing his Sharingan in full blaze. "You violated Sandame's law in front of children. Any final thoughts?" Kakashi muttered. "Stop." Kakashi turned around to see Anbu encircling them. The law was repealed on the day Naruto was exiled. Before dropping the jounin, Kakashi gave him another disgusted look. Hokage-sama. Where are you? She would never have accepted this. Jiraiya stated. They charged in after being directed to her current residence and were about to confront her when they noticed her condition. She had sake bottles all over the place. Her hinge was broken, indicating that she no longer cared. She stank of sake and didn't appear to have taken a shower in the previous 24 hours. What do you two desire? Get out. Please leave me alone, she moaned as she reached for another bottle. Drunkenly, Jiraiya stayed with Shizune after learning the full story from Shizune. While Kakashi marched out, as he walked out, he was met by Sasuke and the two elder advisors. Kakashi-san. The council has decided that you should take Sasuke as your personal apprentice and teach him all of your jutsus. Having a Uchiha as your apprentice should make you proud. Kakashi, even with you phony Sharingan, you'll never be able to compete with my clan. You should feel honored to be able to teach a true Sharingan user, mocked Sasuke. Before snapping, Kakashi gave them an eye smile. He leaped forward, delivering a back kick to Sasuke's stomach. Given Kakashi's lack of restraint, he flew quite far. Kakashi, what exactly have you done? You'll be taken to Ibiki for causing harm to Uchiha-sama, Hamura yelled. I'm punishing him for attempting to desert the leaf as his sensei. Kakashi explained. The cursed seal was to blame, if it hadn't been for that and the demon child. I'm sure Uchiha-sama would have stayed. Koharu spat out. That's nonsense. And you know it, if he really didn't want to leave. My seal would stop it from acting up, Kakashi muttered. Regardless, you have harmed the last Uchiha, Anbu. Accept him, Koharu yelled out. Halt, yelled someone. Tsunade had finally left the building, and everyone looked around. She looked at them before speaking. What is that scum doing outside? I told my shinobi to imprison him, she indicated Sasuke. Be reasonable. Tsunade, if you imprison him, he will be more likely to flee due to injustice, Hamura stated. Tsunade slammed her fist into the earth, causing it to tremble. You have no right to refuse my orders to my shinobi. That's also Hokage-sama to you. Kakashi returned to his house after Sasuke was quickly taken there. He was summoned to the council 5 hours later. Haddock Kakashi. Shinobi Jounin 9720. You have been summoned to explain why you do not want to teach Uchiha-sama the jutsu he deserves to learn, including the Rasengan, Hamura said. The Shinobi Council was outraged by this ridiculous charge, while the civilian council was trying to persuade the others that Uchiha should learn everything Kakashi had to teach him, as well as having all the other clans teach him their clan jutsus. Needless to say, it was a shambles. Tsunade was about to yell for silence when he heard the crackling of lightning, followed by many chirps. Everyone turned to see Kakashi with his Chidori blazing at full power. Now that I have your attention, I'd like to make an announcement. He removed his hayate and threw it in front of Tsunade. I resign with immediate effect. When this unexpected announcement was made, everyone fell silent. The room quickly erupted in unison. Everyone was pleading with or questioning Kakashi about why. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on Tsunade. Okay, that's fine. Kakashi is no longer a leaf shinobi. However, you are not permitted to join any other villages. Kakashi nodded before turning around and leaving. Before leaving, he added, I'll be out of town for a while. I haven't taken a vacation in a long time. Tsunade recognized the hidden meaning right away. He desired to locate Naruto and ensure his safety. Okay, approved. You are free to leave. Wait, everyone turned to face Danzo, who had stood up. If you wish to leave the village, you must relinquish the Sharingan and give it to a worthy successor. Kakashi tossed a scroll onto the floor and activated it, surprising everyone what was in it. There was a jar, and inside it was a floating Sharingan eyeball. Already took it out. Don't need it anymore, replied Kakashi before making a hand sign. Before anyone could react, the jar exploded, destroying the eyeball. I'm not letting anyone take Obito's gift, though. Anbu, seize him for destroying a precious resource, shouted Danzo. Kakashi laughed at this before suddenly dispersing into smoke, showing that it was a shadow clone. Curse him, send out the hunter nins. We must kill him for doing such a travesty. Add him to the bingo book, said Hamura. No, Tsunade's voice was loud and clear. He was officially discharged from service. Nobody will send anyone to find him. That eyeball was his, and he made sure that it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. This meeting is over. Flashback ends. Naruto was staring at Kakashi after they told him their story. He had just noticed that he was wearing a red headband that covered his left eye instead of his usual hayate. His eyes started to water at this revelation. His senseis didn't abandon him after all. They were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and couldn't help him. Why? He asked. Kakashi took the time to pull out another scroll and unsealed what was inside it. A cabinet with 5 drawers appeared, as Kakashi pulled out each drawer. They could see it was full of paperwork in each one. This cabinet is records of all the time I tried to adopt you. Every time. I was blocked by the civilian council, who controlled the adoption process, even after each rejection. I still tried. When they threatened me, I pushed back. This process continued until you finally became a shinobi, where I could no longer adopt you. Still, I pushed to become your sensei after that. The council only agreed if I took the Uchiha with you. When I left, I searched all over the elemental nations for you. I stayed with Koyuki. After a while I couldn't find you. Imagine my surprise when she knew where you were. Naruto's eyes were streaming with tears now. After wiping them off, he asked, "But you barely taught me anything. Even when I asked you to train me for the Chunin exam, you took Sasuke team and left me with Abisu." Kakashi laughed. "You really think it was coincident that the first place he took you to train Jiraiya was there? Plus the council forced me to teach him to make sure he would live against a Jinchuriki like you." Naruto realized that Kakashi had already planned with Jiraiya to have him train and make it seem like it was a lucky chance. Jiraiya took this chance to say his piece. "After you left, I almost killed the civilian council. The only thing that stopped me was hope that I could find you. When I got a toad saying you took your name out of the contract and jumped over the wall, I was filled with misery. I couldn't tell Kakashi early as he already left. So I decided to do the same and leave Konoha. I claimed asylum with Koyuki-sama later. And she's going to star in my movie, Ika Ika Paradise." Jiraiya had a perverted grin at that before becoming serious. Still, the council would be flipping over if they knew whose child they banished. Said Jiraiya, "I already know who my parents are," replied Naruto. Kakashi and Jiraiya were surprised. "Hayashi gave me a scroll explaining everything, and also gave me my inheritance." Should have known Hayashi would be the one to tell. "He was your father's best friend," said Jiraiya, before realizing something. "Wait, your inheritance?" Naruto nodded, before disappearing in a yellow flash. Guess he learned it after all," chuckled Kakashi as he pulled out his green little book again. It was the latest Ika Ika novel. Naruto soon reappeared with Hinata, Neji, Tenten, Konohamaru, and Hanabi. The 5 of them were leaking huge bloodlust until Naruto, Kakashi, and Jiraiya explained what happened earlier. Soon, tears and hugs were given. "Asuma had almost had a heart attack when you disappeared," chuckled Kakashi to Konohamaru. Konohamaru flinched at the name. "It's Maru, now. I didn't want to be reminded of Konoha anymore." "You guys know what's happening in Konoha right now?" asked Jiraiya. Back at Konoha, Konoha was at an all-time low. The village had no alliances to any major or minor villages anymore. Wave and Sand broke off all agreements, which was followed by Spring and many other places. In total, every place Naruto had been to that aided Konoha was now being thrown back in their face. At first, the whole village was ecstatic that the demon brat was finally gone, but they did not know the consequences that it would bring them. Even the fire daimyo was furious at them and cut down funding to save face against the other daimyos. They lost one of their best elite jounin and another sannin and his spy network, even though it is considered a major village. Konoha was now considered the weakest of all 5 villages, and its position would soon be usurped by the new Sound Village. The civilian council, however, didn't care and believed themselves to still be the strongest. However, a new development forced them to recognize the danger they were in. It was Anoki died, and a new Tsuchikage took over who wanted Konoha burned to the ground. Kuretsuchi was slated for it but somehow disappeared. The Sound Village had allied itself with Iwa and declared war on Konoha. Without any allies, Konoha would die. What was even worse was Orochimaru had been accepted back in the Akatsuki with the disappearance of Itachi and Kasama. Inside the council room, "If we don't find a way out of this, Konoha will fall," declared Tsunade. Her eyes were dull and bags could be seen from under her eyes, signifying she didn't have a good night's sleep. She hadn't had one ever since Naruto had been banished. "I don't see what the big problem is," scoffed a pink-haired counselor by the name of Haruno. "All we need is Uchiha-sama leading our army and we'll win. In fact, we should make him Hokage right now." While several of the civilian council agreed, all the others were looking at her if she was retarded. "Now isn't the time for a new Hokage," said Danzo. "If Konoha is to survive, we must look for someone to help us, even if it means extending past the wall." Silence pervaded the council room at this statement. Then, outbursts could be heard. "Everyone, shut up," yelled Tsunade, causing everyone to become silent. "Danzo is right. We have no choice. We don't have any alliances here. Perhaps we could strike an alliance with the West. We must find some way to send them an envoy of peace." Back at the Imperial Palace, Konoha is on the verge of being burnt to the ground due to the alliance of Odo, Iwa and aim with Akatsuki. I'm sure they are still looking for Bijus, but for some reason most of them have disappeared, excluding Gaara and Killer Bee, said Jiraiya. He wanted to explain more, but Naruto held his hand up. I already know what's happening there. My spies are in there, giving me information. As for the Jinchurikis, there is no need to worry. The rest of them are all here at the Western Empire. Jiraiya and Kakashi were surprised at that. They didn't think that the West could have sent agents in to spy and get the Bijus to a safe location. Konoha will try to seek us for an alliance and will most likely try to mercilessly exploit us. No doubt Danzo will demand submission, while Sasuke team will demand to be the emperor because he deserves it, continued Naruto. Naruto, I know you have no love for Konoha anymore, but I beg of you, convince the romper to at least deter or claim neutrality on this war. There are people still in there who still miss you, like Chuchai and Iam. Uruka hates that his adoptive little brother is gone, and Tsunade still can't get a good night's sleep. Begged Jiraiya and bowed down, head to the ground. You wish to convince the emperor? Asked Hanabi. Jiraiya nodded as well as Kakashi. Maru laughed and all of them pointed at Naruto. He's the emperor. They giggled. At this, Jiraiya and Kakashi dropped the mouths right into the floor. They knew he had potential, but they couldn't imagine that Naruto would become the emperor. I'm not the strongest person in the empire, if that's what you're thinking, said Naruto quickly. There are still many people stronger than me even when I fully tap into Kurama's, Kyubai's real name, power. But they pledged loyalty because they thought I could make the right decisions and lead the empire into a time of peace. Kakashi and Jiraiya looked at each eye to eye before they started to chuckle. Soon, it became a full-blown laughter, and it was contagious. After they all calmed down, Naruto decided to reveal his plans. You probably don't know, but we hold a grand fighting tournament here. There's one for taijutsu-based only, one for weapons-based only, and the last one will be any skills allowed. The general rule is killing is allowed, but discouraged, and the participants must follow the proctor's judgment. We hold it to see who's the best, although a select few choose not to participate to let others have a chance. This year, I've made contact with Koyuki for anyone who wants to participate in the tournament to gather at the Land of Spring, and everyone from the villages is invited to join, even Odo and Iwa. Before anyone could even make a protest, a voice rang out. A tournament with your old village. Sign me in. They looked to see Yusuke grinning like a maniac. Behind him was Itachi and Kasama, who decided to join in to see who came, as well as Yakiru. Jiraiya and Kakashi immediately took fighting position until Naruto waved them down. He explained the history behind Itachi and why both of them came with him to the west, as well as telling them that Yusuke was the one who protected them and brought them over. Soon, lunch was served for them all. So, Naruto, who knows you're here besides us? And how did you get information about the elemental nations? Asked Jiraiya, interested in his spy network. It's the Pikara merchant house, replied Naruto. The merchant house had suddenly appeared in elemental nations and grew extremely quick, making it one of the successful merchandising organization. To see that underneath it was actually a spy ring impressed Jiraiya. They decided to forget about the East for the time being and eat and celebrate a reunion between an emperor, his godfather, and his dad's pupil who could have been his adopted brother. After 2 weeks, Tsunade was drinking again in her office in Konoha early in the morning. She couldn't sleep without having nightmares, so she turned to alcohol to alleviate her misery. Minato, Kushina, I couldn't keep you safe. Son, you must be furious right now, she mumbled as she prepared to take another sip when the door burst open. Hokage-sama, our sensor nins have detected 4 unknown people heading our way, announced the messenger. So, we get people now and then, she explained. Here's the thing, one of them has chakra levels as high as the 9-tailed fox, if not higher, the messenger exclaimed. Tsunade stood up quickly, shaking off her inebriation. A mysterious person with high-level chakra visiting Konoha. 4 people in total. Maybe Jiraiya finally found Naruto and was bringing him home. Tsunade could certainly overturn the banishment now that she had the permission of the Fire Daimyo. Jiraiya had certainly stated that he would look for him when he left her. Jiraiya, her heart ached for that name. She had ignored and punched Jiraiya for years, but the man had a special place in her heart. Jiraiya sent her letters and love notes even during her self-exile. One of her worst nightmares was seeing his face full of rage directed at her for failing to protect his godson while he was away from the village, second only to seeing Naruto's face when his dreams were crushed. She missed him so much now that he was gone. One never knows who they truly loved until they are gone. She would finally accept if Jiraiya asked her out on a date at any time. Be on high alert. Nobody is supposed to engage them. I will personally greet them at the main entrance. Request that the clan leaders do the same. she instructed the messenger. She dashed out of her office to get cleaned up. Tsunade stood at the front gate, accompanied by a nervous Shizune and other clan leaders. Hayashi remained the Hyuga clan leader due to his strength. But the heir was now going to another main branch member named Heiki, who certainly enforced the traditional ways. There were rumors that if he didn't get his way, he threatened the branch members with the seal, including raping married women. Because of the seal, no one would confess. Tsunade raged at the injustice, but was powerless to intervene because it was clan business only. The four mysterious people were soon visible. Tsunade's heart sank as she noticed that none of the strangers had white hair or spiky blonde hair. Instead, 3 people were approaching them, and the 4th was sitting on the very tall man's shoulder. Tsunade shivered as she looked at the tall man. Tsunade would describe him as a man bathed in blood if words could describe him. The 4 came to a halt in front of them, and 2 of them bowed respectfully. The tall one just stood there staring at them, while the child on his shoulder was staring at a butterfly. "Greetings, Hokage of Konoha. We are Western Empire messengers, here to extend an invitation to a tournament," greeted the lady. Everyone's ears could be heard ringing as soon as they heard. They had been looking for a way to contact them and ended up here. "I appreciate your greetings. Allow us to lead you to the council room, where we can discuss this further," Tsunade said as he led them to the tower. The council rushed into the room as quickly as they could. Tsunade tried to avoid the civilian council, but he couldn't because word of visitors from the Western Empire spread quickly. It quickly became crowded, and many shinobi and citizens flocked to see them. The Tone woman wore a purple spandex with green stripes down the sides. The suit certainly accentuated her figure and her large breasts, and it was clear that she didn't wear underwear, resulting in several nosebleeds. Her long, luscious blonde hair and blue eyes made her a desirable target. The other guy was dressed in a white karate gi and kung fu pants. His brown hair and brown eyes gave him the appearance of a normal, everyday person. He was, however, very well built. Muscles could be seen on his arm, and he appeared to be a lean man rather than a bodybuilder. Tsunade motioned to the Anbu guarding the room to quickly close the door so the meeting could begin. The girl on the man's shoulder was eating a chocolate box, blocking out the tension in the room. Himura spoke first, before Tsunade could. "So, what brings you to Konoha?" he spit out, staring at them as if they were dirt. They all remained silent. "Answer us, you idiot Bints," yelled Haruno Asana. The messengers exchanged glances before turning to face Tsunade. "We had no idea Konoha had employed banshees. Is it not, however, polite to allow your esteemed leader to initiate the conversation?" said the woman politely. The Shinobi Council laughed at this statement, leaving Himura and Asana fuming. "In fact, I was about to ask when my advisor exceeded her authority. He'll be reminded of who's in charge," Tsunade said, her gaze fixed on Himura. "May I inquire as to your names and your purpose for being here as Western envoys?" The woman nodded. "My name is Furinji Miu, and the person next to me is Shirahama Kenishi. Zaraki Kenpachi and Yakairu Kusajishi are the men with the child on their shoulders. We have come to invite Konoha to a tournament on behalf of the Empire. There will be 3 of them, all held at the same location but at different times to accommodate everyone. The first will be a taijutsu-based competition. The second is a weapons-only competition. The final one allows anyone to use anything as long as they obey the proctor. If you'd like, we can go over it in greater detail later. Each one will allow you to enter a maximum of 7 contestants. The individual may participate in multiple tournaments, but each will count as one of your entries. I recommend that you bring your strongest members to the tournament, or you may face humiliation from the other villages. HMPH, I could easily win this," a voice said. The visitors turned to see Uchiha Sasuke, who had taken the Uchiha clan's council seat. Smirking, they all frowned as they remembered who had caused Naruto to be exiled in the first place. "I belong to the elite. Nobody stands in my way. So, Uchiha-san, you're volunteering to go to the tournament, I suppose," Kenishi stated. He didn't like how he was staring at Miu. "Know your place, scum," Sasuke grumbled, his Sharingan blazing. "Uchiha Sasuke, disconnect your Sharingan. That is not permitted without permission," yelled Tsunade. Sasuke ignored her until she appeared in front of his face with pink hair. Everyone was taken aback by the girl's speed and had not even noticed her movement. "Hey, stupid duckbutt doesn't know how to listen or stare." Yakairu laughed as she poked Sasuke in the eye with her 2 fingers. The Uchiha screamed in agony at the sudden poke and collapsed to the ground. He opened his eyes, allowing everyone to see that he could still see, despite the fact that his Sharingan was now turned off and his eyes were red. "Yakairu, stop poking strangers. You never know what you'll catch," Miu lectured. "Hi," Yakairu said, jumping back onto Kenpachi's shoulder. Anbu, arrest them for attacking the Uchiha, exclaimed Koharu. Enough. Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk, which silenced everyone. It is his fault for not obeying my command. If you do it again, Uchiha, you will be taken back to Anko and Ibiki. Sasuke growled but followed orders. He knew she didn't have the authority to do so as long as the civilian council and the elders worshipped him. As my companion continued, Kenichi explained, the tournament is where our people test their limits. Hold on. I have a question, Danzo said. Kenichi looked at Tsunade, who nodded and let Danzo finish his question. What do you mean by other villages? Danzo inquired. Simple. You are not the only major village invited to this tournament, Kenichi replied. Kumo, Suna, Iwa, Kirigakure, and even Odo should have received invitations to this tournament by now. Tetsu has received the same weapon offer. At this point, everyone fell silent. Tsunade interjected. You mean, you're also inviting our enemies? Be assured that you will all have separate quarters and will be closely monitored. Fighting is not permitted unless it is part of the tournament. The cages will be allowed to enter the tournament, but only one tournament will be available to them. If they do not want to participate, we encourage them to come and watch. We will also allow up to 10 people from outside the competition to accompany you. You will all meet at the Land of Spring, from which we will transport you to the west, where the tournament will take place. Your daimyos have already been notified and have agreed to a temporary ceasefire in any war. The tournament winner will receive 0.100 million ryo. The council members held their breath. Konoha would be able to fund the war with that much money. That is, until Kenichi said, each, the council erupted in applause. Here was a way to ensure Konoha's dominance was restored. They didn't even bother to consider the possibility of defeat. The civilians were too preoccupied with picturing the Uchiha returning the money. While everyone was talking, Danzo kept his gaze fixed on Kenpachi. This guy, his chakra level is at an all-time high. If I used my Kato Mitsukami on him, I'd have a powerful tool to help me kick Tsunade out and become Hokage as I should have. I could rule over all the elemental kingdoms. And why should we stop there? I could have the entire continent bowing down to Konoha, thought Danzo. He subtly activated his eye, making sure no one was looking at him, and directed it directly at Kenpachi. He made certain that he used as much chakra as possible to influence him. However, he ran into a major snag on that part. Kenpachi laughed as he felt the genjutsu. It quickly became louder, attracting everyone's attention. His maniacal laughter could soon be heard even by those attempting to eavesdrop outside the chamber, which was unusual given the heavy silencing seals in place to prevent eavesdroppers. Who challenged me? Laughed Kenpachi. He drew his sword, allowing them a better look at it. It didn't appear to be special and had jagged edges. Kenpachi's chakra shot up before they could think about it. A visible yellow aura surrounded him, and it was growing. Cracks were visible in the council room, and the entire civilian council fainted and passed out. The shinobi council struggled to keep themselves from suffering the same fate. The roof began to spew streams of dust, warning them that if Kenpachi persisted, the roof would collapse on them. The Anbu remained rooted to their position, fearful of the man, until Miu appeared in front of them. Stop, she instructed calmly. That suffocating sensation abruptly stopped. Kenpachi looked at her for a moment before reluctantly agreeing. Ken-chan, you made me drop a chocolate, grumbled Yakiru from behind him. Kenpachi had not even moved when he raised his chakra levels. What on earth happened? Shikaku wondered. My best guess, someone tried to persuade Kenpachi or put him in a genjutsu, which doesn't work on him because he's bloodthirsty. Either way, it's a surefire way to make him believe someone is challenging him. Kenichi shrugged. You have to wonder, though, who did it? Tsunade snarled in response. Someone had attempted to control a Western envoy. This action could have drawn the West into the war as adversaries, which Konoha did not want. Please accept my apologies. It was not my intention or order to do such a heinous thing to you all. Please allow me to provide you with a room for the night. Nobody will ever try something like this again. I promise. Konoha agrees to participate in the tournament. Acceptable. We'll return to the Empire tomorrow morning to give you our response. The tournaments will begin in a month and last for 6 days. For 9 days, we will graciously host everyone. 2 days to get used to our empire, and 1 day to pack your belongings and leave. We will, of course, provide free food, medical assistance, and beds for you all, Kenichi replied as he bowed with Miu. They all started walking towards the exit. Wait, Hamura stuttered. You should be punished in the council chamber for such actions, perhaps as hostages at the T&I department with Ibiki and Anko until the tournament teaches you. Kenpachi thought this had gone on long enough. He ripped his eye patch off, revealing that his right eye was perfectly functional. All the conscious Shinobis were taken aback until he returned his gaze to them and let loose. The yellow aura could be seen once more, but this time it was thickly saturated in the air above him. A massive skull could be seen forming. Give it a shot, punks. I could use a good fight. But it doesn't appear that everyone in this village would even serve as a good warm-up. Mayu and Kenichi showed no signs of trying to stop him remotely. Kiramaru was now digging his way out, his animal instincts telling him to flee. Now, several clan heads had followed the civilians' lead and fainted, as had the elders, Tsunade, Hayashi, Tsume, Shikaku, Inachai, Chusa, Asuma, and Danzo were the only ones who were still awake. Tsunade was able to break free from her fear and yell, "Stop, I promised you all safety. And I'll make sure you get it, for suggesting such a thing. The elders will be brought to the T&I department." Kenichi nodded and pressed his hand against Kenpachi's arm. Kenpachi simply made a tisk noise before reapplying his eye patch and leaving. He advised that our rules are quite strict. If this happens again, the offender will be executed without hesitation. Give your list to the Pakara Merchant House once you've decided who will compete and who will accompany them on their visit. After all, they are the West's merchant house. Kenichi mentioned this before departing, when Tsunade whirled upon them all. The Shinobis let out a relieved sigh of relief. Raise them all. I want everyone questioned. I don't want people who openly challenge my authority and believe they can get away with it. The elderly are included in this. Nobody is immune. No exceptions, Tsunade said as she ran out of the room. She planned to house the visitors in the Senju compound, but she needed to make sure it was clean enough. She also had to send a command to all shinobi. Nobody was permitted to bother them. Danzo was standing there, steaming. How could Kato Mitsukami let him down? Perhaps he needed to see a doctor to ensure that his Sharingan, which he had liberated for the sake of Konoha, was still functional. When Sasuke awoke, he was disgusted and left to change his clothes. How could that man be so much more powerful to me? He wondered. That's something I should have. I have to get it to kill Itachi, who I'm sure is somewhere out there. His attention was drawn to the female envoy. I have to have her. She will be able to produce powerful children in order to resurrect the Uchiha clan. Her beauty, like everything else, belongs to me. At all of the other major shinobi and samurai villages, while Konoha received their invitation, all of the other villages were met by Western envoys. Suna, Tatsu, Kiri, and Kumo accepted peacefully despite their reservations. Iwa and Odo had a little more difficulty. Iwa attempted to kill them, while Odo held them hostage for Orochimaru to experiment on. Unfortunately for both of them, they quickly discovered that the tables had been turned. Yusuke was part of the envoy to Iwa and simply shot their ANBU with a shotgun during the meeting. Odo was met by Nico Robin, who used her Hana Hana no Mai to grow arms all over the ninjas with a clutch before they could do anything. She was accompanied by her husband, Roronoa Zoro, who only needed to stare at them before they stopped. They also agreed. To no one's surprise, Zoro caused that group to take longer to return to the west. Tetsu agreed to only compete in the weapons tournament. Returned to Konoha. Ken-chan, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. Miu Miu. Kai-chan, Yakairu said after the group had explored Konoha a little after the meeting. Many people were still staring at them, but they were unconcerned. I'd like to get something to eat as well. Let's go to that place for lunch, Kenichi suggested, pointing to Ikaraku Ramen. Several shinobis stopped them before they could enter. Shikamaru, Chaoji, Ino, Sakura, Shino, Lee, and Kiba were the last of Naruto's generation's genins. So you're the Western envoys. Huh, troublesome, Shikamaru said. Chaoji just kept eating his chips while Ino and Sakura scrutinized Miu. Her chests, her toned body, and her stunning legs were all things to be envied. They felt she was lacking in several areas when compared to her. Kiba was panting like a dog at the sight of a beautiful woman, while Shino was still Shino. Before anyone could react, Lee dashed forward and kneeled, carrying flowers. Oh, my name is Rock Lee, and my flames of youth say you're the perfect match for me because we both wear spandex suits. Lee yelled out. This introduction made everyone sweat. The envoy's first impression of this man was that he had enormous brows. Miu just looked at him before chuckling and responding. I'm sorry, Lee, you're not really my type. In addition, I'm already in. This woman clearly deserves an elite like myself. Lee, go be useful and bug out. She's obviously going to become one of my wives. A voice was cut off as Sasuke took a step forward. Everyone looked at him with scorn. Everyone except Sakura, who was still shouting loudly about how great the Uchiha was. Ino had finally seen the light, albeit quite forcefully thanks to Inachai, Anko, and Shikamaru, and had stopped chasing Sasuke. She recognized that Sasuke was a jerk who did not deserve her attention. Her attention was currently drawn to other men, particularly the lean-looking man next to Miu. "What do you think, Miu-san? Come with me, and you'll bear my children to help the Uchiha clan repopulate. You obviously deserve someone of my caliber," Sasuke said. He went to grab her hand and pull her towards his house without waiting for a response. With luck, he'll be expecting a child within the next 9 months. While he was still dreaming, he was punched in the face. Due to the impact, he flew back and rolled quite a bit before colliding with and going through a wall. Shaking his head, he noticed Kanishi had punched him and was now standing in front of Miu. "Don't touch my fiancé," exclaimed Kanishi. Sasuke snarled. Was this frail man married to the ethereal beauty? Sakura screamed and punched Kanishi before he could attack. "You cretin! You have no right to attack Sasuke-kun," Sakura yelled. "Stand still so I can beat you." Kanishi merely dodged all of them but didn't counterattack. "Why aren't you attacking back?" questioned Ino. She knew this man could have countered Sakura. "Sorry, it's a principle of mine to not hurt women," said Kanishi, dodging a kick. "Then stand still so I can hit you," screamed Sakura. "That's why I'm here, to hit women that Kanishi won't hit," said Miu, blocking a fist and uppercutting Sakura. Miu then gripped Sakura's neck and kneed her in the chest several times. She then whirled around Sakura, grabbing her head and using it as a center. Miu kneed Sakura in the head again while spinning. She then used the momentum to toss herself up into the air. Sakura, still dizzy from all the attacks she took, didn't notice the danger that was coming and fell to the floor, spinning like a high-speed drill. One of Miu's leg was straight up, showing how flexible she was, with one of her legs up, and her hugging that leg. The remaining pivot leg came crashing down into Sakura. The ground behind Sakura broke. "Furinji Kuhayoku," Miu yelled to the audience who saw this. They could have sworn that feathery wings sprouted at the end of her attack, with Miu at the center of it. "Such power, such grace, such beauty. She will belong to me," thought Sasuke as he prepared to use his Sharingan to hypnotize this woman to come with him. Before he could do such a thing, a pan met with his face, knocking him unconscious. "I've told you before, Uchiha scum. You're not allowed to stop within 100 feet of my shop and my daughter after that stunt you tried to pull," yelled Chuchai, who had come out to see what was going on. Anbu units appeared before them. Miu and Kanishi were ready to fight, when one of the Anbu with a dragon mask stepped forward. "Do not worry. We are here to arrest Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke for harassing you. Hokage-sama ordered all shinobis to not do so. Unfortunately, it seems Uchiha-san thought himself above the rules. They will be taken to the T&I department to be re-educated on following orders." The ANBU took Sasuke to Anko, while Sakura was first taken to the hospital for treatment. Kiba whistled. He wanted to hit on Miu, but even he knew when to back off if a woman was already claimed by another man. And the woman didn't seem afraid to kick him in the balls if she needed to. And Kiba preferred to remain a man that was powerful, said Shino. "You folks are certainly welcomed in my shop if you don't like the Uchiha," laughed Chuchai. After a quick introduction, the envoys went into the ramen shop while the rest of the shinobis went on to their own business. Orders were quickly placed, and soon 4 steaming hot ramen were ready. Chuchai didn't notice that Miu had subtly placed a silencing seal on the flaps, so nobody could overhear what they would say while they were eating. "This ramen is pretty good. I can see why Naruto recommended this place," said Kanishi casually as he finished his meal. And Chuchai froze up at that statement before tears started to fill their eyes as they remembered the little boy they had come to see as family. "Where is he? Please, tell me where my favorite little brother went," sobbed Im. She was so heartbroken when Naruto was banished that she could barely help out at the shop. The Uchiha tried to take advantage of her and wanted to practice making babies with her while saying any child wouldn't be part of the Uchiha clan and should be proud he lowered himself to her. That day, Sasuke found out that a ramen cook that occasionally dealt with ninjas and was filled with rage shouldn't be trifled with. Kanishi looked around to make sure nobody was listening and before continuing, "He's fine right now. He's at the Western Empire. Naruto wishes that he could see you two again, but couldn't risk dying." He tossed a pouch to Chuchai. "This should more than cover our meal and all the meals Naruto ate at your place on his tab." As they all left to head back to the location Tsunade had promised to let them sleep at, Yakiru mentioned, "That was good, too-kun. Aya-chan, if you want to leave with us, just show up, see ya," as Kenpachi opened the flap to let them all out. As soon as they left, Chuchai and Im quickly closed the business for the day before rushing upstairs to the privacy of their house. They opened the pouch to see priceless gems and gold. What caught their attention, though, was a letter with Naruto's handwriting. Opening it up with shaky hands, they read the letter. Soon, the letter became illegible as tears were dripping down on the letter. Quickly, they burned it to show now proof. As it was burning, Chuchai looked at Im and said, Well, I think it's time we relocated our business. We haven't been doing well here. And I see a prospective place we can open.
I will continue the story in next part, so turn on the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Till then, we weeb offline.